Okay, that's there. But basically, what these people want to understand, they say that culture is not just a mere collection of customs, beliefs, and practices. It is an arrangement in a particular fashion. So, culture is not a mere collection of facts, customs, and beliefs. Rather, it is arrangement, intellectual arrangement in a proper fashion. What they believe is cultural activities. Some of the cultural activities is nothing but personality. Cultural activities is nothing but personality. Okay, so they want to understand. Sometimes they use the word character also. So they want to understand how these two are related, culture and character, or culture and personality, how these two are related, why they are similar, why they are different, what are the reasons behind. So the core of culture personality school is to understand the relation, how the psychological aspects since childhood are influencing the personality. So what are the psychological aspects? Where do they come from? They come from the culture. The origin of culture personality school dates back to 1930s. What they are focusing upon, basically, during this period in 1930s, it was heavily influenced by Franz Boas, who said that there is cultural relativism. So these people are students of Franz Boas. If you have listened to historical particularism, there I have said that he has trained multiple anthropologists. So Margaret Mead, Ruth Benedict, these people are the students of Franz Boas. And Franz Boas highlighted that no two cultures are similar because they are influenced by their history. Since histories are not same, the cultures are different, and you cannot judge one from the other's point of view. So in a similar manner, they say that this cultural relativism can be seen in the behavior of the individual also, in human behavior, where you are making generalized assumptions. You make generalized assumptions, right? So these people reject it. And even Margaret Mead and Ruth Benedict, being students of Bose, they stressed about uniqueness of cultures and their historical development and foundation for exploring how culture molds individual behavior. So they say that every culture is different, since they agree with the cultural relativism, and they want to understand how every culture is molding their behavior, human behavior. So this is what they are trying to understand. And their origins were in 1930s influenced by Franz Boas. They were students of Franz Boas. Next thing, they were influenced by psychology. So Sigmund Freud, who talked about behaviorist psychology, this was gaining prominence during that time. Sigmund Freud's concept, where the behavior is due to the psychology. Because when I talked about Oedipus myth, so it is because a guilt feeling. The guilt feeling is from the mind, right? So it is psychological in nature. So at that point of time, this psychology was getting very famous. So these people, what they have done is that they have started incorporating ideas about the unconscious. So their first influence is from Franz Boas, telling that every culture is different. So every culture will result in different behavior. You have to understand it. And next, psychology influence. So in psychology, what do they talk about? They'll understand the human behavior and the reasons behind it, why they are behaving in a particular way because of their thought process. So something at the unconscious level is making them behave like this. Now, anthropologists have included this psychology in ethnography. So they have combined psychology with ethnography. So there they started understanding and including the unconscious, what is happening, what is making them do or behave in this manner, what is making them behave in this manner, how the childhood is influencing the adolescence or the personality. Okay, so here they started including unconscious reasons or childhood and its impact on personality. So they started incorporating these things. Okay, so in the childhood, what happens? There will be socialization. So how this socialization is impacting the human behavior. So basically, what is personality? Like it is human behavior. Right? Personality means human behavior. Here in psychology, they are trying to understand why they are behaving in a particular way because of their thought process. So since they are thinking in this way, they are behaving in so and so manner. So same thing they try to bring in anthropology. They have combined psychology and ethnography and they made it interdisciplinary approach in understanding the human behavior. Basic background, historical background, yesterday you were asking, right? Historical background of culture personality school. This is the background. At that point of time, they were the students of Franz Boas. Franz Boas talked about cultural relativism. Every culture has its own history. Because of that reason, it leads to the different evolution. So you cannot generalize in the evolution because he criticized this to the classical evolutionists. So now getting inspired from that, these people said that since every culture is different, they will give rise to different cultural behavior. Behavior won't be same. So it's result of its culture or cultural activities. Behavior is nothing but sum of cultural activities, that is personality according to them or character. So they want to understand it. Next thing, how they try to understand that? They try to understand by bringing up psychology and combining it with ethnography. So at the unconscious level, what is it making you do? That means something that you have been incorporated since your childhood in the process of upbringing during the enculturation or socialization. You are taught many things, and now that is making unconsciously act. So now they are linking this unconsciousness or psychology to ethnography and they are trying to explain how the culture is influencing the behavior. Clear, right? Any doubts here in the historical background of cultural personality school? Can you explain, please? Yeah. So basically, historical background. Why did they come, or how did they start this? One is Franz Boas influence, other is Sigmund Freud psychological influence. So through that they have come to this point. And what are their basic premises? The basic premises are childhood experiences influences the individual personality as an adult. First thing, childhood experiences influences the individual's personality as an adult. And next, adult personality characteristics. Adult personality characteristics are reflected. Adult personality characteristics are reflected yeah, yeah. Adult personality characteristics are reflected in the cultural beliefs. So, cultural beliefs can be related to religion and other social institutions. Okay, so reflected in cultural beliefs and social institutions. So, social institutions can be anything: political, social, economic. What? Simple. Childhood experience will influence personality of an individual as an adult, and this personality will reflect the culture. Okay, so these personality characteristics are reflected in the cultural beliefs and social institutions. And next, coming to methodology. See, first we have seen historical background, then basic premises, then methodology, which is very important. And generally here in this theory, methodology, generally students get confused. First is clinical interviews. Clinical interviews means there are a variety of methods. So one professional will come and he will be able to record and attempt to understand the internal thoughts and motivations of an individual within a society. So there will be professionals who will come and who will note down everything what you are thinking about, and they'll try to understand the motivations behind the thoughts. So the interviews are usually clinical interviews are usually conducted in a specific room or office. So first is clinical interviews, because I told you right, it is clubbing psychology and ethnography to understand the human behavior or personality. So in order to understand what is at the unconscious, you have to know the internal thoughts. So for that you will be doing clinical interviews. Then other is dream analysis. What do you mean by dream analysis? By the discussion of individual dreams, you will be able to understand the emotions of a person. So there are many repressed emotions. Sigmund Freud does the psychoanalysis, and he tries to say that whatever the repressed emotions are there, which are feeling at the back of the subconscious, they come out as dreams. So whatever the repressed emotions, I think for UPSC aspirants tonight, in their dreams, they become IAS, IPS officers, traveling to their own districts, their homes, with security and escort, everything. This might be the dream. This might be the repressed emotions of a person which were peeling back the subconscious, and they get expressed in the dreams. So through discussion of individual dreams, you will be able to understand what is influencing the psychoanalysis of an individual. So for that, dream analysis is the other method. Next, you have life histories. So life history means documentation of individuals' experiences throughout the life. So that you document, and through that you try to understand. Next, what is the other method? Other method is projective tests. So what are projective tests? Projective tests are nothing but you show something and you ask, what do you feel by looking at it? And you know, the image or the portrait or the picture or the situation that you are showing is ambiguous in nature. You won't say it's good or you won't say it's bad. You'll just show it. Some people will talk in different way, other people will talk in different way. So this shows what is lying at the back of their mind. So these tests help in bringing out person's thoughts or emotions. So projective tests are the personality tests which have an ambiguous meaning, so that a person's emotions or the thoughts are revealed. Those are the projective tests. And then you can compare these results. And there is, within the projective test, there is one test called Rorschach. There are various types. CHACH. So this is also known as ink blot test. In this test, individual must describe what he see and his perceptions are compared with the other results from the society. Okay, so these tests, however, are very influenced by the Western thought, which sometimes presents problems when used cross culturally, especially in non Western cultures. So, generally, these have some problems. This is with respect to methodology. You have seen, see, projective tests, nothing but you will show which is something ambiguous in nature, and through that you have to tell, so that your what is there in your mind will come out. So, one type is Rorschach ink blot test. So here they'll show you and you will tell something, and that is compared with the other members of the society, what other people are telling, and you try to come out with conclusions. But one problem is that here it is mostly influenced by Western thought, this kind of test. And now this you cannot apply in the non-Western societies. This is creating a problem over there. So various scholars within culture personality school include Ruth Benedict, Margaret Mead, and Ralph Linton. Abraham Cardinal, and Cora Du Bois. So here they try to understand the interaction between culture and personality. So first, Ruth Benedict School is also known as Personality Influences Culture. So we'll try to understand what is personality according to each of them and how they are influencing. So Margaret Mead says that culture influences personality, and rest three of them will say that culture will influence personality and personality will influence culture. Okay, culture influences personality and personality influences culture. So what is culture according to Ruth Benedict? What is personality according to her? So Ruth Benedict says that culture consists of traits. What is a trait? Trait is part of culture, which is the smallest unit, which cannot be divided further. If it is divided, it will lose its meaning. So, smallest meaningful unit is trait. Several traits combine to form complex. And these several complexes will form configuration. Okay, so actual way of describing is trait, complex, pattern, configuration. But Ruth Benedict directly talks about trait, complex, and configuration. Okay, so pattern has been given by Herskowitz. Like when we study culture, we'll be looking at 2.1. Herskowitz, he talks about combination of cultural traits combine to form complex, complex form patterns, patterns form configuration. So that is the explanation given by Herskowitz. So the small difference you have to notice here that the pattern word has been missed by her, but however it is combination of things. Okay, so traits, complex, and configurations. So what are traits? Anything that has got meaning. Trait, something that has got meaning. Suppose yesterday we have taken an example. There is a chair, right? So chair has got some meaning. Sitting has got some meaning. Sitting, standing. So traits need not be only tangible, intangible ideas and thoughts are also traits. So sitting is one trait, chair is other trait. Now you combine, it is a complex. Now you combine other complex, you combine it with sitting on the chair is good or belongs to higher status. Sitting on the floor is belonging to the lower status. So you are combining it. So one complex combining with other complex will lead to configuration. So traits, complexes, multiple complexes will form a configuration. So whereas in terms of Herskowitz, don't get confused, there he'll use one more word, pattern. So this is culture according to Ruth Benedict. Ruth Benedict says that culture is composing of traits, traits combined to form complexes, complexes lead to configuration. Right. So now if you see further, personality. What is personality? According to Ruth Benedict. Personality is nothing but projection of cultural pattern or these cultural configurations. So if you project the cultural configurations onto a screen that will talk about your personality. Right? So you can note down about Ruth Benedict. Ruth Benedict, a student of Franz Boas. Ruth Benedict, a student of Franz Boas, studied the configurational personality. Studied the configurational personality of the Zuni of New Mexico, of the Zuni of New Mexico, Quakitul, Quakitul Red Indians of northwest coast of Canada. Sorry, Canada. Northwest coast of Canada. Quakitul Red Indians and Dobu of Melanesia. See Mexico and Zuni of Mexico, Dobu of Melanesia. She did not conduct fieldwork in these societies. She did not conduct fieldwork in these societies. Right? She did not conduct fieldwork in these three societies. She simply utilized the first-hand information. She simply utilized the first-hand information collected by other anthropologists. She simply utilized the first-hand information collected by other anthropologists from these societies. From these societies. From these societies. She did not do the work. Rather, she collected the information from other people who has done the work there. So Benedict's image of culture, Ruth Benedict's image of culture was a piece of weaving. Benedict's image of culture was a piece of weaving in which in which the weaved ones formed a distinct and recognizable pattern. Okay, so weaved ones formed a distinct and recognizable pattern. She called this a configuration. She called this a configuration. According to her, culture projects. According to her, culture projects individual personality. According to her, culture projects individual personality. Full stop. The configuration, the configuration of a culture, the configuration of a culture in her own words, the configuration of a culture in her own words was more than the sum of its parts. The configuration of a culture in her own words was more than the sum of its parts. It is a result of unique arrangement. It is a result of unique arrangement and interrelation. It is a result of unique arrangement and interrelations of the parts that brings about a new entity. No doubt. Example: gunpowder. Gunpowder is not merely gunpowder is not merely gunpowder is not merely sum of not merely sum of sulfur, charcoal, charcoal, potassium nitrate. It's not just some of it, but much more than that. Right? The way and the quantity they are mixed, then only it will become gunpowder. If you add irrespective, if you don't add in proper proportions, you won't see the result. So gunpowder is not just some of them. So therefore, every culture, next, after the example, next continuation. Therefore, every culture is unique arrangement of its parts. The every culture is unique arrangement of its parts. Every culture, full stop. Every culture, next. Therefore, every culture is a unique arrangement of its parts, full stop. Every culture has its central axis, genius, soul. So these oblique, you can, instead of comma, you can keep oblique. Every culture has a central axis or soul or genius. Full stop. It can be called ethos. It can be called ethos. It occupies the most dominant position within a culture. It can be called ethos. It occupies the most dominant position within a culture. Full stop. All other patterns of the culture, all other patterns of the culture become its satellites. All other patterns of the culture becomes its satellites. Full stop. As a dominant pattern, as a dominant pattern, as a dominant pattern, ethos colors, as a dominant pattern, ethos colors all other patterns, colors all other patterns. Full stop. The totality of ethos and other patterns is a configuration. The totality of ethos and other patterns is a configuration. Full stop. This configuration, full stop, this configuration can be easily identified. This configuration can be easily identified from the personality of an individual. This configuration can be easily identified from the personality of an individual born, born, individual born, comma, brought up, from the personality of an individual, from the personality of an born, individual born, comma, brought up and reared to maturity, born, brought up and reared to maturity in that culture. Individual born, comma, brought up and reared to maturity in that culture, full stop. Therefore, the personality configuration, therefore the personality configuration reflects culture. Therefore, the personality configuration reflects culture. So, what is she saying? You have cultural traits combined to form complex, and these complex are arranged along a central axis or genius or theme or a design which is called as ethos, and this which is called as pattern. Okay, so traits, complexes, when they are arranged, then that's a pattern. Several complexes lead to a pattern, and this pattern along particular ethos is called as configuration. There are many other configurations also, not just one. You have plenty of configuration, but one is dominant, and this dominant one or this dominant pattern will color all other configurations as well. Getting my point? Every culture has a central axis. It can be called as ethos. It occupies the most dominant position within a culture. All other patterns of the culture will become its satellites. So, I'll give you an example. Chair, sitting on the chair or floor. You can sit on the chair or floor. So, now these are two combined to form complex. Now, you will say that the person belonging to higher caste will sit on the chair, lower caste will sit on the floor. So, this tend to form this complex. Complexes are arranged around what? Caste. So, there is a pattern called caste. So, now caste is the dominating ethos or dominating genius here. So, now you take any other aspect, you have all other economic activity, religious activity, political activity, they become satellites to this. That means it is dominated. What are satellites? The small things that revolve around a big thing, right? So around Earth, you have small round moving objects known as satellites. So these all become satellites, the smaller version. This is the bigger one which dominates the entire culture. Henceforth, this totality of ethos, this ethos will reflect the culture, and this is personality. Can you explain what we have discussed? See, when you explain and you face the difficulty, then you'll get more clarity. So, basically, what we have seen, traits, complex. So, several complexes will lead to patterns, and these complexes are arranged along certain central axis or genius, which is known as ethos. And this ethos is the one which is dominating, and this dominating will color all other ethos. That means you will see the spillover effect of it. The same caste you see in religion, you see in economic institution, you see in political institution, everywhere. Right? So it occupies this ethos will occupy the most dominant position within a culture. All other patterns of culture, you have other patterns also. There is arrangement along other things also. But these are all dominated by the ethos. That means the main genius. That is called as personality. The totality of ethos, the totality of ethos and other patterns is called as configuration. Configuration is nothing but reflection of culture. So now you take this configuration, throw a projector, what you will see? You will see the culture. So culture is nothing but projection of configuration. So what is configuration? Complexes, several complexes arranged. You have multiple patterns, right? But there is one pattern which is dominant among all, which is called as central axis genius ethos. And this dominant one will have its coloring on all other patterns. This combined one is called as configuration. Several patterns combine to form configuration. There are several patterns which are combining to form configuration. But within that patterns, there is one dominant one which is influencing all other. So caste, which is influencing everywhere. That is the example I have given. So this is nothing but personality. This configuration can be easily identified from the personality. So now if you look at the personality of an individual, you can understand this configuration. Getting my point? Traits, complexes, patterns, but out of the patterns, there is one pattern which is dominant, which is arranged around the central axis, and which is the design. So this is the one which is giving the design to it. If you change and put its position in different way, then its design is changed completely. So this design is because of this dominant one, and this dominant one is central axis genius or the themes or personality or character of that particular configuration. So in this configuration, this is a personality which dominates, and that personality reflects the culture. So now by looking at this personality, it will show the culture. So if you go to that person and if you look at them, you will understand the culture. So from this, she tries to say that personality reflects culture. And personality influences culture. You can see, right? So you have a personality, and this personality is determining how the culture should be. So personality is influencing culture. Clear? what Ruth Benedict is trying to say. So she classified the ethos across the world. She thought the humans can be have can be divided into two ethos. There are two kinds of personality in the human society. You can notice two kinds of personality. One is good, other is bad, right? So she is influenced by Friedrich Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche analysis of Greek tragedy using two terms, namely Apollonian and Dionysian. So from there, she gets influenced and she applies that to explaining of culture personality. She says that in human society, you can notice two kinds of ethos or genius or personality, that is Apollonian and Dionysian. Huh? Please. ఓకే చెప్పండి నేనే క్లాస్ జరుగుతుంది చెప్పండి నో నో ఇట్స్ ఓకే చెప్పండి యూ వాంట్ టు ఎన్రోల్ క్లాస్ ఓకే ఓకే మన హెడ్ ఆఫీస్ అక్కడ ఉంటుంది సో ఇక్కడ పెట్టలేము లైక్ మీరు 1:30కి ఆర్ 2కి అట్లా రాగలుగుతారా అక్కడ 1:30కి మెయిన్ మన 29 పిల్లర్ దగ్గర ఉంది ఆఫీస్ సో ఇది క్లాస్ రూమ్ సో ఇక్కడ కూడా వస్తూ ఉంటారు కాకపోతే ఏంటంటే ఇప్పుడు ఈరోజు అనుకోకుండా ఇక్కడ పెట్టినాం క్లాస్ ముగ్గురే ఉన్నారు Okay, so here human society can be divided into two geniuses. One is Apollonian, other is Dionysian. So Apollonian personality is something which sought for order, restoring unity, whereas Dionysian is breaking of order, which five senses should be in control, but generally more of drunkenness, frenzy, these kind of things come under Dionysian. So she has observed or looked at the societies, right? So I told you Zuni, Dobu, and Cocytul Red Indians. She has observed them, right? So there she has noticed Apollonian kind of thing among the Pueblo of New Mexico, Zuni of New Mexico. You notice Apollonian kind of behavior. And whereas Benedict cites the example of Dobu and Cocytul cultures of northwest coast of America as the representatives of Dionysian. So Dionysian means like there is chaos in the society, irrationality, you will be having excess. Okay, so there won't be control. They are extreme, intoxicated, and most of the times you see cruelty there, lust. Okay, so these kind of things are observed. So I'll just read out the story of these people so that you can get a deep understanding. So according to Ruth Benedict, the Dobusian society, okay, the Dobu conforms to the Dionysian personality. I told you Zuni is Apollonian and rest two are Dionysian. So Dobu conforms. By looking at them, she conforms them to Dionysian. Did she do fieldwork over there? No. She only collected information from those who have done it. Right. So the Dobuan child in Melanesia might think twice about coming onto this world. What they're saying is that the person, if you want to be born into this society, you'll think twice before born. If you want to take birth over there, if he had a choice in this matter, if at all, if you give a child a chance whether you want to take birth in this society or not, he will think twice before coming. He enters a family where the only member is likely to care much about him is his uncle. So here in this family, mother's brother will care about him. His father, who is interested, is in his own sister's children. If he is cared by uncle, his father will be caring his sister's children, right? So which usually resents him. So his father won't care. And father is resented by the child. Father must want until he is weaned before resuming sexual relation with his mother. See, for his father, until he is weaned, before resuming sexual relation with his mother, till then the child is scared. After resuming, he doesn't bother. Till the time his weaning process is done, then only that weaning means feeding of milk, right? So often he is also unwanted by his mother and abortion is common. Father is also leaving after weaning process. Mother also doesn't want to bother about him, and little warmth or affection you notice towards the child in the dogo. So you can see the kind of personality over there. Father is disinterested, mother is disinterested. Why will the child we want to born over there? Then the Doboal child soon learns that he lives in a world ruled by magic. The child will soon learn that he is living in a world ruled by magic. Nothing happens from natural causes. All the phenomena are controlled by the witchcraft and sorcery. So, illness, accident, death, all these things are done by witchcraft only according to him. So, these have been used against others for the call of vengeance of one's own kinsman. So, his kinsman will be there, right? So, towards them, they will be using this witchcraft and sorcery to take the vengeance. Nightmares are interpreted as witchcraft. If you have any nightmare, then they'll think that somebody has done the witchcraft, for that reason they're having it. And so they'll get up and in the nightmare, they believe that they have just escaped the death, narrow escape from the hostile spirits. So all the legendary heroes and villains are still alive as active in the supernatural world. Crops grow only if one's long hours of magic chants are successful. So you can notice that they believe that things are being run by magic, witchcraft, and sorcery, and they are looking for taking vengeance against the other kinsman. And even sexual desire does not arise except in response to others' love magic. So other people are also performing that love magic, and that only is resulting in sexual desire, or else you won't have. So this is their understanding of the society. You can look at, then you will come to the conclusion that this is the kind of personality they have. And fear of, you notice the fear and anxiety. You know, there is a chances of Dobons being poisoned, the fear of being poisoned. That's why food is food, whatever the food they are preparing, it is carefully guarded. So every time they look at it, if somebody is trying to mix anything or poison it, there are few persons indeed with whom Dobon will eat. The Dobon people eat with only very few people, that is the reason. So Dobon couple spend alternate years in the village of wife and husband, so that one of them is always a disturbed and humiliated outsider. One year they'll be in wife's house, other year they'll be in husband's house. So when you are far away, obviously they will become distant people, and that creates a disturbance. And divorces and remarriages are there in this society. Okay, each village shelters men from many different villages, so that none of them can trust either. What you are noticing is that each village shelters men from different villages. So now other people, other village people also come and take shelter in this village from different places. So now what happens is that you cannot trust who is trustworthy, whom you can rely upon. They are giving support to this village, that village, people from belonging to different villages. So overall, you miss the trust. So men are nervous about their about their wives, and their possible witchcraft and fear of their mother-in-laws also. What you are noticing here, to the Dobuans, the secure feeling is absent. Every time magic, threat, insecurity is there. There is no care. So here the relations are surface relations. They are not strong relations. So in this kind of cultural setting, what kind of personality develops? So you have this kind of culture that okay, mother is not caring, father after weaning practices leaves him. Everything runs by magic, witchcraft, sorcery. Everybody wants to take vengeance against others. Okay, there is divorce and remarriages. So now who you don't know who belongs to which part, who supports whom. Every time you have that fear and anxiety, threat, and wives, witchcraft, sorcery. Also, you are afraid because remarriages and divorces are there. So in this kind of cultural setting, what kind of personality do you notice? What kind of personality will develop? Dionysian means you'll notice that in this kind of cultural setting, people will always be suspicious. They'll be hostile, distrustful, jealous, and you'll see secretive. That means they'll hide things, and they'll be deceitful. So these all are rational and reactions for the lives of the world they are setting. So for them it is rational. Being in this manner, it is rational because the kind of setting they have been put in, the kind of culture they are living with. So for them, this kind of personality will develop. So you can understand that all the ones are paranoid, calling for psychotherapy. But simply to call them paranoid could be incorrect for their fears and not irrational, because by looking at them, if you see suspicious, distrustful, jealous, deceitful, secretive, by looking at these things, you can call them paranoid. But it's not correct because of the fears that they were put in. So that's why it is not irrational, it is justified. Are you getting my point? So the danger they face are genuine, they are not imaginary. The dangers they are facing genuine. So a true paranoid personality imagines that other people are threatening even without. Paranoid personality, even without causing any harm, they think that harm is being caused. But here they are doing it in reality. Thus, the culture shapes personality pattern which is normal and useful for that culture. So, in this cultural arrangement, you notice a personality, and this personality is dominant, this pattern is dominant, and this is influence. There might be some good people, there might be some good things happening, but what is dominant is this characteristics of jealous, secretive, deceitful, distrustful. These are dominating. So, henceforth, she calls Dobuans and Coquetul people as Dionysians. And in a similar manner, in the Zuni, you will be having peaceful life. So Ruth Benedict studied the Zuni of New Mexico to illustrate the viewpoint on Apollonian personality. The Zuni are people in an emotionally disturbed world. They are placed in emotionally disturbed world. The child is warmly welcomed, treated with tender hardness, and receives a great deal of loving attention and receives a great deal of from the parents. He is never disciplined or punished, yet becomes a well behaved one within the society in which crime is rare and quarreling is almost unknown. So you notice cooperation, moderation. They don't fight for things, they cooperate. Okay, everything they share. Magic only during the ceremonies and dances they use magic. So Zuni world often helped since the supernaturals have the same taste as the living men. So these people and supernatural, since they have the same taste, so they have long ceremonies. Only during that part, they do this magic. So in this kind of society, they have sex as happy life. So it's not a series of temptations. So there in Dobons, what did you notice with respect to this sexual desire? The remarriages and divorces are more. Here it is not that case. Given these conditions, what kind of personality you notice? You notice that people to be very cooperative, confident, trustworthy, which she calls as Apollonian. So she said that human society can be divided into two geniuses or two types of personality, that is Apollonian and Dionysian. This story you don't need to know in detail, but for you to understand, like what she has mentioned, I've just given you that clarity, what she was trying to look at and tell. How did she tell Apollonian? Not random. She has observed all these things. Okay, this is a personality that is dominating mostly. So, dominating ethos will color all other patterns, giving rise to a configuration. Right? So, it is dominant. What is personality? Personality is nothing but the complexes when arranged in a particular pattern along a central axis known as ethos gives rise to a personality. Right? So that is dominant among all. And two kinds, Apollonian and Dionysian. Apollonian is something good, and Dionysian, that is very distrustful society. So whom she is influenced by whom did she get influenced? Frederick Nietzsche. Right. So this is our understanding with respect to personality influences culture. Then you have the criticisms to Bendick's approach. First thing, cultures are diverse and dynamic. Labeling them as just Apollonian and Dionysian is ignoring the individual variation. Next thing, empirical psychological testing she did not do. You did not go and do any assignment, psychological assessments over there. You just observed what has been already written. By observation only, you gave the conclusion. You did not do any psychological assessments. Her work focused on cultural patterns but did not fully address other pressures, outside pressures such as colonialism and external pressures on the American native societies. So she did not observe what external pressures are there on it. She ignored the historical and economic influences. Levi Strauss, in his book Structural Anthropology, he critiqued, arguing that cultures cannot be reduced to simple personality types and you should study it through structural relationships. You cannot just make cultures as personalities. You cannot just reduce them to simple personality types. You have to study the structural relationships. Right? So this is Personality Influences Culture by Ruth Benedict. So quickly revising, she says that culture, you have culture. So culture is nothing but a projection of configuration. So she says that culture consists of traits combined to form complex patterns, then configuration. There are multiple patterns within a configuration. So multiple patterns combined to form configuration. But within that you have one dominant pattern which is aligned along a central axis or a genius or ethos which dominates all others and which she calls as personality. And this dominant personality reflects culture. So personality reflects and influences culture. So personality influences culture, and she has seen that human society can be divided into two kinds or two personalities, that is Apollonian and Dionysian, and you explain that. That's it. So this is personality influences culture. Then you have Margaret Mead. Margaret Mead, pioneering American anthropologist, again student of Franz Boas and student of Ruth Benedict, friend of Ruth Benedict and student of Ruth Benedict. Mead is well known for her significant contribution to the culture and personality school of thought. What is the work of Ruth Benedict? The important work of where she has talked all these things, whatever we have discussed in the work Patterns of Culture. So once you go through the document in the evening after the class, so you will have a clarity of all the books and what we have discussed, right? So but stories and these explanation whatever I have given with respect to Ruth Benedict, that's not there. Okay, so now coming to Mead, her famous work is Coming of Age in Samoa. So her methodology is photographic technique and observational phenomena, interviews, household census. These are the things. Like Margaret Mead, she took household census, photography techniques, observational phenomena, and at the same time interviews of male and female. She also used questionnaires. Questionnaires means giving a paper in which question and answers are there. They'll tick what is right and what is wrong. That's questionnaire. So her important work, Margaret Mead's important work is Coming of Age in Samoa. See, in American society, she notices the adolescent girls are behaving in a particular way, in an aggressive manner. They're feeling irritated, and their behavior is deviant from the natural one. So she doubts whether this behavior is it due to biology or is it because of culture. If it is biology, everywhere you should see the same. But she want to confirm it, whether is it because of biology or not. If you notice that this behavior is not the same everywhere, then it is not influenced by biology, it is influenced by culture. So Mead employed ethnographic fieldwork, including participant observation there and informal interviews with 68 Samoan girls aged between 9 and 20. For 9 months, she has conducted. She learned the local language, shared meals, integrated into their life for better understanding of the nuances. So, from this book, she argued that whatever the behavior that you're noticing at the adolescence is a cultural construction. Adolescent stress is not biological but a product of cultural conditioning. In Samoans, what you notice is that there is openness regarding sexuality, birth, and death. So, parents also did not hide anything from their children. Premarital relations are allowed. Cultural stability and role clarity is present. They know what they have to do before, after. So, their role clarity is there. And emotional detachment, any emotional attachments are not there in the Samoans. And social markers of maturity, social markers of maturity. In maturity in Samoa, how they decide a person is mature, they were determined more by physical appearance and external markers rather than age. In American society, adolescence is decided by age, right? This age will lead you to adolescence, but there it is more of physical markers. So social markers of maturity are different over there. These things shows the difference of behavior. Okay, so why adolescent behavior of girls in America is different from Samoan? It is because of these cultural differences that you notice between America and Samoans. And she says that American girls are stress free. Sorry, Samoan girls are stress free compared to Americans. And this is what irks Derek Freeman. Derek Freeman won't be able to digest that Samoans are better than Americans. So, in order to verify the fact, Derek Freeman goes to Samoa, he conducts the fieldwork there, and he comes out with certain conclusions to disprove what Margaret Mead has said. Okay, so far, what did you understand? First, we have seen Personality Influences Culture by Ruth Benedict, and next we have come to Margaret Mead. Margaret Mead wants to understand whether a behavior of the girl who is stressed and deviant from the normal way in American Indians, she want to know whether it's biological inevitability. That means it is biological in nature and everybody has to go through. Or is it culturally conditioned? So in order to understand this, she goes to Samoans and she tries to understand them. Okay, so this is growing up in the Samoan culture. From here, what did you understand? It is because of culture. So she says that personality is influenced by culture. Personality is influenced by culture. That means culture influences personality. There, Ruth Benedict says that because of the dominant personality, entire culture will be influenced by this. So, personality influences culture according to Ruth Benedict, and here culture influences personality according to Margaret Mead. See, coming of age in someone, you have noticed. Then other work, growing up in New Guinea is the other work. So Margaret Mead's next effort was a pioneer work on the influence of childhood training and personality development. So in the childhood training, how the personality develops. Mead observed that Manu's children, so she has studied Manus of New Guinea, MANU. Okay, so they were not closely supervised. In America, what you notice, children are closely supervised, whereas in Manus, they are not closely supervised. And children were left pretty much to their ways in Manus. In America, they want to act according to the trained norms, right? In America, what you notice, it is a populated world by young and peer, all categories of people. Children live along with all categories of people. Here, children live in a world populated by their peers. So they live with the children only. Children live with the children. They are mostly connected to the children. And children spend most of their time in the manus playing, and they have few responsibilities. But whereas in American society you have multiple responsibilities, they are not allowed to play throughout. Right? Adults fill their children's mind with too many thoughts in America. Like adults will say that you have to do this, you have to do this, what is this, good, bad. They'll explain the fairy tales, riddles, myths, folklore songs, everything. But in adults, in Manus, adults won't do anything. No storytelling, no pattern, no guessing, no teaching of anything. And in America, you notice social tradition providing rich information for fantasy. And whereas in Manus, there is no such tradition. In Manus, you'll notice married children would like to hear legends from adults. But whereas in America, there is no such thing. So, what you can understand from here, Mead concluded that the imagination and creativity we observe or we tend to associate with childhood must be cultivated through adult guidance and inspection. So, she has noticed that Americans are more creative and imaginative compared to Manus. Why? Because their childhood were trained and were taught in such a manner so that they become imaginative and creative. Whereas Manus are not, because they were not trained in those aspects by the parents. They were left to play, they were not bothered about the children. So, children mostly spend time playing with their peer groups. So, this is what she has observed. So, from here also, she tries to say that culture influences personality. Culture influences personality. Okay. Right? Culture influences personality by Margaret Mead. Along with this, you also notice one more work, sex and temperament. Sex and temperament. So there she studies three groups living in same geography. So in the same area, she tries to study three societies, and these three societies have different kinds of culture. Same area. The name of The tribes is Arapesh, Mundugomar and Shamboli. So here what she has observed is that a comparison has been made. In Arapesh, the male and female both are submissive. The male and female both are submissive. They're more Arapesh people are more secure than anyone else. Environment contains few resources. According to Arab, according to that few resources, they maintain less population. Men and women cooperate. They work together in the environment by obtaining the limited resources. The trait of conflict, struggle, and competition. When you have few people and enough resources, why will you have conflict, struggle, and competition? You won't have. This is completely absent. So the behavior is cooperative, sympathetic, peace-loving, non-quarreling, and there are very kind traits. So people praise both men and women who are submissive rather than who is competitive or who is dominant. Here, who is submissive are praised. So thus, both Arapesh men and women are submissive and dependent on each other and kindly disposed of their responsibilities towards each other. Okay, so these traits are similar to what the kind of woman traits in America. So women in America are submissive, cooperative, kind, all these things according to Mead. Mead says that, see, whatever the qualities that you notice among the Arapesh, the male and female both are having the qualities of submissiveness, which is the trait of, or which is the quality of American woman. And then you have Mundugomar personality, contrast of Arapesh, egoistic, quarrelsome, suspicious, aggressive. Both females and males are aggressive here. Okay, so children also receive the same traits. They believe in greater number of wives will give rise to greater status. So they always keep struggling for. So and again they exchange women. So they'll give their daughter to get the wives. So now mother is also jealous towards the daughter because she will be replaced with a co-wife in later days. Sometimes mother kills the daughter also. Right? So this situations become strenuous that mother kills the daughter at times. Father wants to exchange and son is not cared because the father wants to have more number of wives. He does not leave the woman for the son to exchange. Okay, sister exchange can lead to the exchange of women, right? So he doesn't lead. So now the conflict creates between the father and son. So these cultural practices have direct bearing on the personality formation. These culture practices that are there, these have direct bearing on the personality formation of the Mundu Kumar. So that's why you notice that they both male and female are aggressive, and it is the quality of American men. And whereas Shamboli, it is contrast with these two. Males acquire, here in Shamboli, males are submissive and females are aggressive. This is an horticultural society, and horticultural means the more work is of women. Economy and economic subsistence is dependent on the woman. So now women will take the lead. They are more aggressive, and whereas men will take care of the cooking of food and taking care of children at home. So they are submissive, and So here male are similar to American women and female are similar to American men. So basically she is trying to show that culture is influencing the personality here. So from these works, growing up in New Guinea, Manus, coming of age in Samoa, sex and temperament. In these three works, sex and temperament, gender, personality, in these three works, she tries to show that culture is influencing personality. There we have seen personality influences culture and it is of two types, and this is culture influences personality. So the criticism of Mead has been done by Derek Freeman. Okay, so Derek Freeman, he goes to Samoa and he finds things. Okay, so the name of the work by Derek Freeman is Margaret Mead and Samoa. This is the book name. Margaret Mead and Samoa, Making and Unmaking of an Anthropological Myth. Margaret Mead and Samoa, Making and Unmaking of an Anthropological Myth. That means he is saying that Margaret Mead and Samoa making an already whatever Mead has said that is a myth. Now she has made it, and through this book he is unmaking that myth. So he is bursting the myth. He described Samoans as Christians. They are patriarchal, they are violent, and they are sexually attractive society. And he emphasized that virginity in Samoan culture is very important. And there is a festival called as Taupo. There is a festival called as Taupo. A ceremonial virgin whose chastity was strictly guarded by entire village. So, what Margaret Mead said, they have sexual freedom, premarital relations are allowed, these things, right? But now he goes and he says that see this ritual ceremony, strict guarding of her chastity, and at the same time they are patriarchal in nature, they are violent, they are sexually restrictive society. And Freeman said that Mead has completely overlooked this. But what happened, American Anthropological Association has denounced this book in 1983. In 1983, this book has been denounced by American Anthropological Association. It has said that the book is poorly written, unscientific, irresponsible, and misleading. Now, after denouncing this book, again Freeman goes back to Samoa. Now, this time he didn't want to leave it like that. He goes to Samoa again and he meets one person, Fapua, who is one of the Mead's informant, okay, original informant. So, she is original informant of Mead. So, the name of the second book is The Fateful Hoaxing of Margaret Mead, Historical Analysis of Her Samoan Research. The name of the work is The Fateful Hoaxing of Margaret Mead, semicolon, a historical analysis of her Samoan research. So, according to this woman or girl, the girls had joked and lied to Mead about their sex lives. and Mead had taken those stories literally. Freeman thus accused Mead of being misled by informants, which led to incorrect or inaccurate ethnographic conclusions. So there is Paul Schenkman, who has balanced the assessment. Another anthropologist conducted repeated fieldwork. Paul Schenkman. He does repeated fieldwork in Samoa and published his analysis in the book. He conducted repeated fieldwork in Samoa and he published his analysis in the book. The Thrashing of Margaret Mead, Anatomy of Anthropological Controversy. So these books are very interesting. The Thrashing of Margaret Mead and Anatomy of Anthropological Controversy. And here Schenkman concludes that Mead works did contain some errors and overstatements. However, Freeman used his findings not to correct the errors but intentionally discredit and damage Mead's reputation. Schenkman also pointed out that the institution of tapu, that means whatever this ceremony was there, this is not widespread but was rather restricted to the upper classes of Samoan society. Okay, this is there, but this is restricted to the upper classes of Samoan society. So, thus, Schenkman says that Freeman have glorified this, which is only present with the upper class society, and try to damage the reputation of Margaret Mead. Unfairly, he has tried to damage the reputation. So, this was the criticism to the fieldwork of Margaret Mead. And Margaret Mead also has been criticized for other reasons. She portrayed Samoan adolescent girls as living in a sexually free, right, liberal and harmonious, but whereas Mead findings were later criticized for over exaggerating the things. And there is one more person, B. Kalpan or Barry Kalpan, has done the Rorschach test findings. Rorschach test findings means showing something and trying to know what they are thinking. So this Inkblot tests are done among the different people, and a high degree of personality is noticed within each culture. Within the same culture itself, you notice high degree of variability of personality. You are telling that culture influences personality, right? But when the psychological assessments are done, what has been observed within the same culture, you have multiple types of personality and varying too much. So that is one of the criticisms of Margaret Mead. So quickly winding up both Ruth Benedict and Margaret Mead. Ruth Benedict, she believes culture consists of traits combined to form several complexes combined to form pattern, and these several patterns combine to form configuration. Several patterns combine to form configuration, but out of that there is one pattern where the complexes are aligned in the central axis known as genius or ethos, which she calls as personality, which is dominant and colors all others. Okay, so this is dominant and it will color all others. So if you are putting a design, this design will dominate. The theme of this main thing will dominate all others, right? You might be observing on saris, blankets, all these things, right? So in the design, one thing will be dominating all other areas. So she says that this personality, which is dominant, will influence the culture. Because the example of caste, I told you caste is a pattern result of multiple complexes, but it itself is having the spillover effects in all other patterns of economic, political and religion also. So in a similar manner, there is personality which is dominant that influences culture. So Ruth Benedict says that personality influences culture, And she says that within human society, humankind, there are two kinds of personality, or two types of genius, that is Apollonian and Dionysian, which we have seen in detail. So this is with respect to Ruth Benedict. What are her criticisms? Why only two? There can be many. You did not do any fieldwork, rather you have only observed. There is no empirical statements, right? And when psychological tests are done, this did not give the results as mentioned by Ruth Benedict. And then coming to Margaret Mead, she tries to show that culture influences personality. She has conducted multiple works, and here, what methods did she use? Participant observation has been done. At the same time, photographic techniques have been used. At the same time, household census has been done. Questionnaires have been used. Interviews have been used. So these are the methods that have been used. She want to prove that culture influences personality. In culture influences personality, main important works what we have seen: Coming of Age in Samoa. This is one of her book. Then other work is Growing Up in New Guinea. And the third is Sex and Temperament, Gender Personality. So here, observing the adolescent girls of America and Samoa, she tries to give some conclusion, but she has been criticized by Derek Freeman, and then Paul Shankman balances it. He says that okay, Tapo, whichever that is there, it is only there in the upper classes. You try to glorify. So he criticizes Freeman also. He also identifies that okay, definitely there are some errors within the works of Margaret Mead. So that is one criticism. Then Growing Up in New Guinea. So here Manus, he sees that American children are more imaginative and they can think better compared to Manus. The reason is that they were trained in such a manner. So she tries to say that culture influences personality. And again, Sex and Temperament, she has observed Arapesh, Mundugomar, and Shamboli, and she tried to show that how each culture is leading to particular kind of personality. Right? We have seen the Arapesh being similar to American women, submissive, and Mundugomar being similar to American men, aggressive. Both they're both the people, male and female, are aggressive. And whereas in Shamboli, you notice female to be aggressive and male to be submissive. So female are like American men, male are like American female. Why? Because that is a horticulture society where economy is dominated by horticulture. So now women's role is more important there for their sustenance, and men will take care at the home. So this is that she wants to convey that the personality is influenced by culture, right? However, I told you Barry Kalpan, who has done road search tests, that means this is ink blot tests or projective tests, said that within the same culture itself, you have observed multiple personalities and huge variability. Whatever she said might not be true, that culture influences only one type of personality or would result in personality. So there is huge variability. This is the other criticism. So these are the criticisms to Margaret Mead. Done. So both the things are clear, right? And in the next class we'll see the remaining things. So we have class tomorrow as well. So we'll finish culture personality tomorrow. Okay. That's all for today. Any doubts? Shiva?